When 3I Atlas first entered our solar system, astronomers logged it as just another cosmic wanderer, another interstellar visitor on a parabolic course. The second of its kind after the infamous Oumuamua, it quickly earned a place in headlines, telescopes, and speculation. But something about this object never quite fit. Its trajectory was too stable, its shape too consistent, its rotation too perfect. So when the James Webb Space Telescope finally aligned its instruments to take high-resolution infrared and structural imaging of 3I Atlas, what it captured shook the very foundations of space science. Because what James Webb saw in deep space did not resemble a comet, or an asteroid, or anything naturally formed. The geometry, the heat signatures, the layered structure. It all points to one terrifying possibility. 3I Atlas might be an artificial construct. And if that's true, then someone, or something, built it. The first sign came in the form of Webb's near-infrared scans, designed to pierce through dust and reflectivity to reveal the surface topology of celestial bodies. What should have been a rugged, irregular shell, the hallmark of any natural object battered by millennia of cosmic radiation and collisions, was instead something alarmingly different. The outer layer of 3I Atlas appeared symmetrical, covered in ridges spaced in exact ratios, like ribs forming a shell, not like erosion, but like architecture. Even more unsettling, those ridges formed nested hexagonal patterns, each perfectly aligned in Fibonacci spiral configurations. These weren't random impact marks. They were deliberate. A few scientists hesitantly proposed that what they were seeing might be the result of advanced internal structuring, perhaps even some sort of armor plating. But who builds armor onto an object floating in deep space? And more importantly, why? The suggestion was met with official silence. But off the record, murmurs began to circulate within the Webb team. This doesn't look like geology. It looks like design. As Webb shifted to its mid-infrared instrument, MIRI, designed to probe internal temperature variations, it discovered something even more baffling. Natural objects, especially icy ones, typically exhibit random internal heating as solar radiation interacts with volatile materials. But 3I Atlas had a consistent thermal structure. The heat was not only centralized, it formed a spherical core of thermal emissions, perfectly uniform, radiating at a fixed frequency. This discovery shattered existing comet models, and as the data continued to stream in, another anomaly emerged. The emissions were being pulsed at timed intervals. Exactly every 57.64 seconds, the core released a minuscule burst of thermal energy, not enough to be propulsion, but far too regular to be chance. The internal structure was now being compared to a chamber, and some even speculated it might be housing something. But no natural process known in astrophysics produces pulsed heat signatures in perfect synchrony. It suggested either an artificial reactor or something hibernating. And the most frightening theory of all? That the object was dormant until now, and the James Webb signal may have woken it up. Among the last set of scans performed by James Webb was a series of polarized light studies, which are typically used to study atmospheric layers or unusual surface reflectivity. But what Webb detected was not just unusual, it was intelligent. The surface of 3I Atlas did not reflect light randomly. Instead, it altered its reflectivity based on the angle and frequency of incoming light from Webb's instruments. In short, it was reacting to being observed. Researchers described it as a form of adaptive camouflage, a method by which the object could conceal certain structural details by literally changing how it reflected radiation. This wasn't just unexpected, it was biologically inspired. Some scientists compared the phenomenon to cephalopods, like octopuses, that can change the texture and reflectivity of their skin to hide in plain sight. But this wasn't skin. This was metallic, layered, coated. And then one of the Webb engineers said something that sent chills through the control room. It's not just hiding from us. It's deciding what we're allowed to see. The final structural anomaly that pushed this object beyond the boundaries of natural explanation came in the form of ultra-detailed silhouette analysis. When the sun's light passed behind 3I Atlas, James Webb captured a nearly perfect edge profile of the object, and what it revealed looked nothing like the jagged shadow of a spinning rock. Instead, it looked like a coin. Two broad, flat surfaces joined by a ridged edge. The rotation was stable, and the object even exhibited gyroscopic stability, maintaining orientation despite solar wind pressures that should have pushed it off course. In ancient cultures, coins were more than currency. They were tokens, symbols, sometimes used as keys. The metaphor isn't lost on scientists now, because 3I Atlas, in all its symmetrical, structured, responsive strangeness, doesn't behave like an asteroid. It doesn't behave like a comet. It behaves like a device. And the fact that it entered our solar system with this level of precision raises a possibility more terrifying than alien life. What if it wasn't random? What if 3I Atlas was aimed? As James Webb's high-precision gyroscopic lensing continued to monitor 3I Atlas, another anomaly presented itself, this time in the object's rotation. Natural objects tumbling through interstellar space often rotate irregularly due to past collisions or uneven mass distribution. But 3I Atlas didn't tumble. It spun perfectly, not just steadily, but with mechanical exactitude. Its rotational axis was fixed, and its speed didn't drift by a single measurable unit over several weeks of continuous observation. But that's not what disturbed the control room. What truly froze the team was when Webb detected micro-adjustments being made in real time. Tiny shifts in rotation that always occurred immediately after gravitational perturbations, like passing near solar wind streams or interacting with minor planetary fields. These shifts were too intelligent to be explained by natural correction. They were not responses. They were preemptive, as if the object was predicting environmental forces before they occurred, recalibrating itself ahead of time like a spacecraft operating on autonomous correction software. One physicist dared to speak what everyone else was thinking. This thing doesn't behave like a rock. It behaves like it knows where it's going. While observing the object under extreme infrared scrutiny, the Webb team decided to run an experiment. They bounced a controlled laser pulse off the structure's surface to study the delay and scatter of the return signal. But the results were unlike anything in the database. Instead of a clean return signal, the telescope received a delayed spectral echo that was not only slightly shifted in frequency, but also modulated, encoded with a repeating band of harmonics that no known material or mineral structure could have produced. More bizarrely, when this echo was compared to known signals cataloged by the SET-1 Institute, a startling similarity emerged. The harmonics matched, partially, a signal recorded 22 years ago from a deep space listening station in Australia. That signal, later dismissed as a probable software error, had been labeled Echo X21, and no explanation had ever been found for its origin. Now, with 3I Atlas reproducing that exact same signature in its reflection pattern, a terrifying thought began to grow. What if 3I Atlas was the source of that echo decades ago, before it ever entered our solar system? Or worse, what if it had already passed through once before? Using layered 3D mapping from multiple Webb scans, researchers created a volumetric model of the object's internal density distribution. Normally, a comet's internal structure is chaotic: empty chambers, porous ice, and fragmented rocks with unpredictable voids. But the model of 3I Atlas revealed something unprecedented: a toroidal pattern running through the center of the object, similar to the magnetic coils used in fusion reactors. Not only was the density unnaturally consistent, but the shape itself resembled a configuration engineered for energy regulation, not random formation. The surrounding layers formed concentric patterns, each equally spaced, a kind of cosmic nesting doll, suggesting intentional compartmentalization. What was even more chilling, though, was when the thermal imaging overlay was applied. The hotspots weren't random. They aligned perfectly with the outer rings of the internal torus. It wasn't just structural, it was functional. The implication? 3I Atlas might not just be an artificial structure. It might be a machine, dormant or hibernating, with systems inside it waiting to be activated. As data poured in and the public grew increasingly curious about why NASA and ESA had gone dark on all official 3I Atlas updates, internal documents began to leak. Whistleblowers from two separate observatories claimed their teams had been ordered to cease all deep-range scans and surrender control of their telescope time to classified government agencies. But that wasn't the most terrifying part. The leaks described something even stranger. Researchers who had spent extended time analyzing the latest Webb images were beginning to report psychosomatic disturbances, vivid dreams involving geometric structures, rotating machinery, and unfamiliar languages. Some described hearing rhythmic tones at night, resembling the pulsing frequency of the 3I Atlas thermal emissions. One astrophysicist, anonymous but verified, claimed to have woken up in the middle of the night, mumbling binary code, which, when transcribed, corresponded to the rotational velocity of 3I Atlas down to 7 decimal points. He had no prior access to that data. Another reported drawing complex hexagonal patterns in her sleep, patterns identical to those found in the object's surface design. This wasn't just scientific observation anymore. It was cognitive infiltration. And it begged the question, is 3I Atlas just a machine drifting through the void? Or is it a message encoded in mass? As scientists around the globe tried to process what the James Webb Telescope had captured, an eerie phenomenon began to unfold, one that extended far beyond 3I Atlas itself. Radio telescopes such as FAST in China and the Very Large Array in New Mexico started reporting a sudden measurable drop in ambient cosmic noise coming from the region of space surrounding 3I Atlas. At first, it was believed to be an instrumentation error, but it wasn't. Because as 3I Atlas drifted further into the solar system, entire quadrants of space around it went quiet. It wasn't just that the object had gone dark, it was that the stars behind it had stopped speaking. Known stars, used for decades in spacecraft navigation, began to show subtle distortions in their optical and spectral signatures, as if something was bending not just light, but the way light behaves. It became clear this wasn't an observational anomaly. Something about 3I Atlas was suppressing information. One physicist put it plainly, it's not just blocking our view, it's blocking the universe's ability to reveal itself around it. The silence wasn't random, it was strategic and expanding. Amid the mounting mystery, internal leaks from NASA's Deep Space Operations Center in Pasadena exposed a chilling reality. 3I Atlas had triggered a classified contingency protocol known only by its code, 9X Sigma. This protocol, never made public before, ordered the immediate redaction of any data matching certain criteria: recursive geometry, pulsed emissions in prime intervals, and most alarmingly, non-random surface symmetry on interstellar bodies. These weren't standard procedures for asteroids or comets. These were protocols built around something else, something the public was never meant to know existed. Files bearing the 9X Sigma designation were scrubbed from open data feeds. James Webb's real-time telemetry was rerouted. Researchers were pulled off the project or reassigned without explanation. What remained was a vacuum, not of data, but of permission. Because somewhere deep in the black-budget corridors of Space Command, someone already knew. They'd seen this before. And now, with 3I Atlas back in range, they were moving fast, not to understand it, but to contain it. The most unnerving reports didn't come from space agencies. They came from individuals, independent astronomers and data scientists who had downloaded fragments of Webb's early data before the 9X Sigma blackout began reporting a bizarre phenomenon. They couldn't remember key aspects of the data. Complex renderings they had saved on encrypted drives appeared altered. Metadata scrambled. Color schemes subtly shifted. One even claimed that his brain refused to visualize the object in certain angles, describing the effect as a mental blind spot, as if his perception was correcting itself to prevent overload. Psychologists brought in to investigate confirmed the presence of temporary cognitive suppression, but no clear cause could be identified. Some began to whisper that 3I Atlas wasn't just physically disruptive, it was neurologically reactive. That the patterns embedded in its structure triggered self-defensive responses in the human brain, forcing it to reject information it could not safely process. What if 3I Atlas was not designed to be understood, but to neutralize those who tried? The final act in this phase of the story doesn't happen in space, but beneath our feet. In a buried research station in Antarctica, where early-stage gravitational wave experiments are quietly monitored by multinational agencies, a subterranean anomaly was detected. The waves matched the harmonic frequency of 3I Atlas's thermal pulses. Exactly. As researchers tracked the signal back, it led not to a piece of hardware or a satellite malfunction, but to a glacial cavern discovered nearly a decade ago and quickly sealed off by military presence. Inside, deep penetration radar revealed a structure, circular, hexagonal, and arranged in the same layered symmetry as 3I Atlas. It was as if a piece of the object, or a version of it, had been here all along. The implications sent shockwaves through the scientific community. Was 3I Atlas truly foreign? Or had it already been part of our solar system, mirrored in places we weren't meant to find until we first looked outward? As agencies across the globe tried to regain control of the narrative, something unprecedented began to unfold. Telescopes in Japan, Russia, Chile, and South Africa all reported the same critical failure: instrumental cross-interference. Systems that had never interacted with each other were now somehow synchronizing without coordination. A neutrino observatory in Argentina registered pulses that corresponded, to the second, with gamma-ray detectors in Sweden and seismic arrays in the Arctic. The unifying factor? Every spike, every anomaly, every surge in unexplained data lined up perfectly with the passage of 3I Atlas through gravitational nodes in the solar system. Experts described it as a network activation event, except this network spanned not digital devices, but planetary sensors. It was as if 3I Atlas was triggering something embedded in Earth's own monitoring infrastructure, something it had been waiting to activate for decades, maybe centuries. No one could explain how or why these systems were linking. But one phrase began to circulate among analysts behind closed doors: the network was never ours. In the late 1990s, a mathematical anomaly known only to elite circles of astrophysicists made waves in theoretical journals: an incomplete tensor equation derived from early gravitational lensing experiments. The equation had remained unsolved for over 30 years, until now. A young physicist at Caltech, analyzing 3I Atlas's gravitational distortions, unknowingly input those same tensor values, and the system solved itself. The equation, once dismissed as an abstraction, now rendered a coherent 4D model, and that model mirrored the internal geometry of 3I Atlas. This wasn't random. It suggested the object was designed using a language more advanced than math itself, a logic system that required human evolution to reach a cognitive threshold before it could be decoded. 3I Atlas had been waiting for humanity to evolve not technologically, but conceptually. It didn't contact us. It was always there, coded into the background equations of the universe, simply waiting for us to finally look at reality the right way. And once we did, it responded. In an undisclosed facility in Europe, a supercomputer known as TYR was fed raw web imaging data in hopes of extracting deeper structural insight. But what TYR produced was not what anyone expected. The AI began mapping out what it identified as hierarchical architectural layers, not in terms of mineral density or surface erosion, but in symbolic logic. It was as if 3I Atlas had embedded a language into its physical form, a syntax based on position, resonance, and light. TYR identified hundreds of semantic nodes arranged across the object's outer shell, and then made a chilling discovery. The message was recursive. When interpreted as an executable language, it produced not just an answer, but a question designed to be read by the observer. Scientists hesitated to release the decoded line, but a whistleblower did. "Who gave you permission to look?" The message wasn't a broadcast, it was a challenge. The very act of decoding 3I Atlas was a trigger event, one that called something back. As observational data increased, another anomaly emerged, one no physicist could explain without redefining space-time itself. In multiple Webb time-lapse sequences, a third reference point appeared. Not a celestial object, but a shifting distortion that behaved like a second telescope observing the same data, but from inside the signal. It was dubbed the third observer. Every time Webb recorded a geometric alignment inside 3I Atlas, this distortion would blink into view for a fraction of a second, as if something was peering back through the data feed, observing Webb's observations in real time. This shouldn't be possible. Theories flooded in. Some said it was a byproduct of quantum entanglement. Others whispered it was a reflection of consciousness itself. But those who had seen the full Webb dataset said something different, that the third observer didn't just watch, it responded. Not with light, not with gravity, but with curvature. The local space-time around Webb began to warp at unpredictable intervals, suggesting the telescope had become a two-way portal, and the moment we stared too deeply into 3I Atlas, something from within it began to stare back. For years we've asked, what is 3I Atlas? Is it a comet, a spacecraft, a relic from another star system? But maybe we've been asking the wrong question all along, because what if it wasn't the object that was under observation, but us? From the moment 3I Atlas entered our solar system, every response, every decoding attempt, every shift in perception was met with a counter-response, as if the object had been watching, waiting, not to be studied, but to study the ones who dared to study it. James Webb didn't just reveal its geometry, it revealed its purpose. And that purpose wasn't random, it was recursive, responsive, a loop of consciousness and design, something built to react to thought itself. Not in the way a machine reacts, but in the way a mirror reflects. Not what we see, but what we truly are. The harmonics under Antarctica, the synthetic language hidden in its shape, the third observer. These aren't coincidences. They are markers, landmarks in a cosmic test that is only just beginning. And now, with the signal fully decoded, with the Webb team fully aware that the object isn't just artificial, but aware, there's only one conclusion left to consider. 3I Atlas is not here to explore. It's not lost, it's not ancient, it's awake. And the only reason we've discovered it is because it led us. And the question no one wants to ask is the one echoing through every lab, every agency, every closed-door meeting. What happens now that it knows? We know?